could you do this to me? After everything we've been through, you just throw it all away. I can't even look at you right now.
3 a.m. That's when Elin decided to shatter what was left of our relationship with a scream that could wake the neighbors 3 floors down. You're suffocating me, Felix. I need space. Why can't you understand that? I sat up in bed, rubbing my eyes. All I'd asked was where she'd been until 2:30. Apparently that made me the villain in her twisted narrative. I just wanted to know you were safe, I said, keeping my voice level. Experience had taught me that matching her volume only made things worse. Safe? She laughed, a bitter sound that cut through the darkness. I'm 28 years old, not some child who needs checking up on. God, you're so clingy. Clingy. The word hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. I'd heard it before, usually when she'd been out with her new crowd of socialite friends, the ones who looked at me like I was something they'd scrape off their designer shoes. Fine, I said quietly. You want space? You've got it. She stormed into the bathroom, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the mirror on our bedroom wall. I heard the shower running, then her hairdryer, then the careful sounds of someone getting dressed to impress. I lay there in the dark, listening to her preparation ritual, the same one she'd been doing more and more often lately. Designer perfume, the expensive kind she saved for special occasions. The rustle of silk, not cotton. The click of heels on hardwood. When she finally emerged, I pretended to be asleep. She grabbed her purse, her keys, and left without another word. The front door closed with a soft click that somehow felt more final than her earlier screaming. I waited exactly 10 minutes before getting up. My laptop was still open on the kitchen counter, the tracking app we'd both installed months ago during a brief period when we actually cared about each other's safety. The little blue dot that represented Elin was moving across the city, heading toward the upscale district where the investment bankers and corporate climbers lived. The dot stopped at 1247 Riverside Drive, Sebastian Lund's address. I'd looked him up weeks ago when his name started appearing in her conversations with increasing frequency. Investment banker, inherited wealth, the kind of guy who wore $1,000 suits and thought the world owed him everything. I closed the laptop and started packing. By dawn, I was gone. Left the key on the counter, took only what was mine, and drove until the city disappeared in my rearview mirror. Elin could have her space, she could have Sebastian, she could have whatever she wanted. What she couldn't have was control over what happened next. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Minneapolis welcomed me with gray skies and the promise of anonymity. I found a loft in the warehouse district, the kind of place where tech startups bloomed and faded like flowers in a drought. Perfect for someone looking to reinvent himself. My new office was 3 blocks away, a converted brick building that housed a dozen small companies. I'd started Rourke Digital Solutions 6 months before everything fell apart with Elin, building client management software for mid-sized businesses. Nothing glamorous, but profitable enough to fund a fresh start. You look like someone who's been through a wood chipper, Maya said when I walked into the office that first Monday. She was my lead developer, a sharp-eyed woman in her 30s who could spot trouble from across a crowded room. Something like that. I settled into my desk chair, noting how good it felt to be in a space that was entirely mine. How are we doing on the Peterson project? Ahead of schedule, as usual, but that's not what's eating at you. Maya pulled up a chair, studying my face with the intensity she usually reserved for debugging code. Want to talk about it? I did, actually. Maya had been a friend before she was an employee, someone I'd known since college who understood both loyalty and discretion. Over coffee that tasted like motor oil, I told her about Elin, about the screaming, the lies, the gradual erosion of everything I'd thought we had together. So she's shacked up with some banker while you're up here starting over? Maya leaned back in her chair, processing. That's cold, even for someone like her. Someone like her? Come on, Felix, I met her at the Christmas party. Beautiful, sure, but she looked at everyone in the room like we were her personal servants, including you. I hadn't wanted to see it then. Love makes you blind to a lot of things, including the way your girlfriend treats the people who matter to you. The thing is, I said, staring out the window at the city below, I don't think she's done with me. People like Elin don't just move on. They need to win. Maya was quiet for a moment. What are you thinking? I'm thinking maybe it's time I learned how to win too. That afternoon, I made a call to Oscar Hendricks. Oscar had been my mentor during a brief stint at a security firm right after college, back when I thought I might want to be a private investigator instead of a programmer. He taught me about research, about finding the truth people tried to hide, about the thin line between legal and illegal. Felix Rourke. His gravelly voice came through the phone. Haven't heard from you in years. What kind of trouble are you in? The kind that involves an ex-girlfriend and her new banker boyfriend. I need information, Oscar, the kind that doesn't show up on Google. Information costs money. I've got money. Then you've got information. Meet me at Murphy's Bar on Hennepin Avenue, 9 o'clock. Murphy's was the kind of place where conversations disappeared into the noise of clinking glasses and old rock music. Oscar looked exactly the same as he had 5 years ago. Rumpled suit, tired eyes, and the demeanor of someone who'd seen too much of humanity's dark side. Sebastian Lund, he said, sliding a manila folder across the scarred wooden table. 30 years old, works at Meridian Investment Group, lives off a trust fund from Daddy's real estate empire, but likes to pretend he's self-made. I opened the folder. Bank statements, credit reports, social media analysis. Oscar was thorough. He's leveraged up to his eyeballs, Oscar continued. That fancy townhouse, mortgaged twice, the BMW, lease he can barely afford. He's living a lifestyle that requires both his salary and his trust fund, and lately, the trust fund's been running thin. What about Elin? Your ex-girlfriend's been busy. Started a PR firm called Rydell Communications 3 months ago. Seed money came from her parents, but she's been telling clients she's independently funded, already signed 2 major accounts by promising results she can't possibly deliver. I studied the documents, feeling pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. They're both pretending to be something they're not. Pretty much. And here's the interesting part. Oscar leaned forward, lowering his voice. I found some group chat logs. Your ex and her friends have been discussing you. Apparently, they're worried you might cause problems for her new business. What kind of problems? The kind where you tell people the truth about who she really is. I closed the folder, my mind already working through possibilities. Oscar, how hard would it be to monitor their communications? Legally, I mean. Depends on how creative you want to get with the definition of legally. He grinned, showing teeth stained by decades of coffee and cigarettes. But for someone with your technical skills, there are ways. Lots of ways. I left Murphy's with the folder and a plan that was starting to take shape. Elin wanted space. She was about to get more space than she'd ever imagined. She and Sebastian both were. Maya looked up from her computer screen as I walked into the office the next morning. You look different. Less like someone who got run over by a truck, more like someone planning to drive the truck. I need a favor, I said, settling into the chair across from her desk. Remember that client monitoring system we built for the law firm last year? The one that tracked financial transactions across multiple platforms? The one that could theoretically be adapted to monitor anyone's financial activity if someone were so inclined? Maya's eyebrows rose. Hypothetically speaking, of course. Hypothetically. She was quiet for a moment, then pulled up a new terminal window. What kind of monitoring are we talking about? And please tell me this is legal. Completely legal. I'm monitoring my own investments. I pulled out the folder Oscar had given me. Investments I made in a company called Rydell Communications. Maya blinked. You invested in your ex-girlfriend's company? Not exactly, but I did some research last night. Turns out Elin used some creative accounting when she started her business. Listed several angel investors who don't actually exist, including one R. Felix, who supposedly contributed $50,000 to her startup fund. She forged your investment? She used my name and financial information to make her company look more legitimate to potential clients, which means I have a legal right to monitor the financial health of my supposed investment. Maya started typing, her fingers flying across the keyboard. And if we happened to discover that this investment was being mismanaged or that funds were being diverted to unauthorized purposes, then I'd have a legal obligation to protect my investment, maybe even recover my funds. This is diabolical, Maya said, but she was smiling. I like it. Give me 2 hours. While Maya worked her magic, I made some calls. The first was to my lawyer, confirming the legal framework for what we were planning. The second was to the bank that held the lease on the apartment Elin and I had shared. As it turned out, my name was still on the lease agreement, something Elin had apparently forgotten in her rush to move in with Sebastian. By afternoon, Maya had built a comprehensive monitoring system that tracked every transaction flowing through Rydell Communications. What we found was even better than I'd hoped. She's been using company funds for personal expenses, Maya said, pointing to a series of transactions on her screen. Rent for Sebastian's townhouse, payments on her car, even grocery bills. And look at this. She highlighted a series of transfers from the business account to a personal account in Sebastian's name. She's been funneling money to her boyfriend, That's embezzlement, Felix, clear as day. I studied the numbers, feeling a cold satisfaction settle in my chest. How much total? $37,000 over the past 3 months, more than enough to shut down the business and trigger investigations with her clients. Not yet, I said. First, we need to make sure she can't cover her tracks. That evening, I drove back to the apartment Elin and I had shared. The building manager was sympathetic when I explained that my girlfriend had moved out without notice, leaving me responsible for the full rent. He was even more sympathetic when I showed him the lease agreement with both our names on it. I need to change the locks, I told him, for security purposes. She took her key when she left. Of course, Mr. Rourke. I'll have maintenance take care of it tomorrow. I spent the night packing Elin's remaining belongings into boxes. Her winter clothes, books, the expensive kitchen gadgets she'd insisted we needed but never used. I was careful with everything, even wrapping her fragile items in bubble wrap. I wasn't trying to damage her property, I was trying to send a message. The next morning, I had everything delivered to Sebastian's townhouse with a note. You wanted space. Here's everything you left behind. F. My phone started ringing 20 minutes later. What the hell do you think you're doing? Ellen's voice was shrill with rage. Cleaning house, I said calmly. You moved out, so I assumed you didn't need your things anymore. You can't just change the locks. I have rights. You have the right to pay your half of the rent, which you haven't done in 3 months. You also have the right to give 30 days' notice before moving out, which you didn't do either. There was a long pause. When she spoke again, her voice was different, calculating. This isn't over, Felix. You think you can just disappear and then come back to mess with my life? I have friends now, important friends, people who can make things very difficult for you. Looking forward to it, I said, and hung up. Maya looked up as I walked back into the office. Judging by that grin, I'm guessing Phase 1 went well? Better than well, she's rattled, and when people are rattled, they make mistakes. What's Phase 2? I settled into my chair, already planning the next move. Phase 2 is where we introduce Sebastian to the concept of consequences. Sebastian Lund's BMW was his pride and joy. I'd learned this from 3 weeks of careful observation, watching his patterns, understanding his routines. Every morning at 7:30, he'd emerge from his townhouse in a perfectly pressed suit, spend 5 minutes inspecting his car for imaginary flaws, then drive to his office like he was piloting a fighter jet. The car represented everything he thought he was: successful, sophisticated, superior to everyone else, which made it the perfect target. You're sure this won't cause any real damage? Maya asked as we sat in my car across the street from Sebastian's office building. Completely sure. Sugar in the gas tank is actually a myth. It won't dissolve in gasoline, so it just sits at the bottom of the tank doing nothing. But he doesn't know that. And the paint? Washable temper paint mixed with corn syrup. It'll look awful, but come off with soap and water. The point isn't to destroy his property, it's to destroy his peace of mind. Maya shook her head, but she was smiling. You've really thought this through. I've had time to think. We waited until Sebastian disappeared into his office building, then moved quickly. The security cameras in the parking garage had convenient blind spots, and I'd practiced the route enough times to do it in under 2 minutes. Sugar in the tank, paint splattered across the windshield and driver's side door, then back to my car before anyone noticed. The real show started an hour later when Sebastian returned for lunch. I watched from across the street as he discovered the damage, his face cycling through confusion, rage, and something that might have been fear. He spent 20 minutes on his phone, probably calling the police, then his insurance company, then anyone else who might listen to his outrage. But the best part came that afternoon when Oscar called with an update. Your boy Sebastian filed a police report, Oscar said. Listed you as the primary suspect. But here's the thing. He can't prove anything. No witnesses, no fingerprints, no security footage. And when the cops ran the sugar in the tank thing past their forensics guy, he told them it was probably a prank by someone who watches too many movies. What about the paint? Vandalism charge at worst, but again, no proof. The responding officer basically told Sebastian to install better security and move on. I felt a surge of satisfaction. How's he handling the frustration? Not well. My source at Meridian says he's been distracted all week, snapping at colleagues, making mistakes on client accounts. His boss pulled him aside yesterday for a conversation about maintaining professional standards. Perfect. A distracted Sebastian was exactly what I needed for the next phase. That evening I received an unexpected call from Kira Walsh, one of Elin's socialite friends. We'd met a few times at parties, and she'd always struck me as someone who collected gossip the way other people collected stamps. Felix, it's Kira. I hope you don't mind me calling. Not at all. What's up? I wanted to apologize for how things went down with you and Elin. Some of the things she's been saying." She trailed off, leaving the implication hanging. "What kind of things?" "Oh, that you were obsessive, controlling, that she was worried you might do something crazy when you found out about Sebastian." Kira's voice carried the false sympathy of someone who enjoyed delivering bad news. "I told her she was being ridiculous, but she seems genuinely concerned." I kept my voice neutral. "Concerned about what?" "That you might try to sabotage her business or something. She's been checking her security systems constantly, convinced you're going to hack her computers or steal her client files." "Interesting." Elin was paranoid, which meant she was already feeling pressure. "That's unfortunate. I hope she finds peace with whatever she's worried about." "Between you and me," Kira continued, lowering her voice conspiratorially, "I think she's projecting. She's been doing some pretty questionable things with her business lately, using company money for personal expenses, making promises to clients she can't keep. If anyone's going to sabotage her business, it'll be her own bad decisions." I filed that information away. "Well, I appreciate you calling, Kira. It's good to know not everyone believes whatever story they're told." After I hung up, I sat in my loft thinking about the conversation. Elin was scared, Sebastian was distracted, and their mutual paranoia was starting to affect their judgment. Time to turn up the pressure. The next morning, I sent an anonymous email to Derek Morrison, Sebastian's business partner at Meridian Investment Group. The email contained a single photograph: Sebastian's vandalized BMW, taken from across the parking garage. The subject line read, "Thought you should know what kind of enemies your partner is making." Then I waited. The call came 2 hours later. Maya answered, then transferred it to me with a grin. Felix Rourke speaking. "This is Derek Morrison from Meridian Investment Group. I believe you know my business partner, Sebastian Lund?" "I know of him. We haven't been formally introduced." "I think we need to meet. There are some things about Sebastian's recent behavior that concern me, and I have reason to believe you might have insights into the situation." I leaned back in my chair, feeling pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. "I'd be happy to meet Mr. Morrison. When and where?" "Murphy's Bar on Hennepin Avenue, 6 o'clock tonight." "I'll be there." Maya looked up as I hung up. "Phase 3? "Phase 3, I confirmed. Time to introduce some chaos into their perfect little world. Derek Morrison was nothing like Sebastian. Where Sebastian was polished and pretentious, Derek was rough around the edges, the kind of guy who'd worked his way up from nothing and never forgot where he came from. He was waiting in a corner booth at Murphy's, nursing a whiskey and looking like a man with problems. "Felix Rourke?" He stood as I approached, offering a firm handshake. "Thanks for meeting me." "Happy to help, if I can." I slid into the booth across from him. "Though I'm not sure what I can tell you about Sebastian that you don't already know." Derek signaled the waitress for another round. "Here's what I know. 3 weeks ago, my business partner started acting like a paranoid lunatic, jumping at shadows, checking his car for damage every morning, convinced someone's out to get him. It's affecting his work, which affects our clients, which affects our bottom line." That sounds frustrating. It gets worse. This morning I get an anonymous email with a photo of his car covered in paint. Someone's definitely targeting him, but he won't tell me why. Just keeps muttering about his girlfriend's ex-boyfriend. I took a sip of my beer, considering my words carefully. I'm assuming I'm the ex-boyfriend in question? That's what I figured. So here's my question. What did he do to you? The directness caught me off guard. I'd expected denials, accusations, maybe even threats. Instead, Derek seemed genuinely interested in getting to the truth. "He's sleeping with my ex-girlfriend," I said finally. "Has been for months, apparently. But that's not really the problem." "What is the problem?" "The problem is that he and Elin have been using my name and financial information to legitimize her business. Forged investment documents, fake references, the works. I only found out when I started digging into why she'd been acting so strange." Derek's expression darkened. "Investment fraud?" "Among other things. She's also been funneling company money to Sebastian's personal accounts. $37,000 so far." "Son of a..." Derek caught himself, glancing around the bar. "You have proof of this?" I pulled out my phone, showing him screenshots of the financial transactions Maya had uncovered. Derek studied them with the intensity of someone who understood exactly what he was looking at. "This is serious," he said finally. "If Sebastian's involved in financial fraud, it could destroy our entire firm. We're already under scrutiny from the state regulatory board for some questionable trades last year." "I'm not looking to destroy your business, Derek. I just want Sebastian and Elin to face consequences for what they've done." Derek was quiet for a long moment, staring into his whiskey. "What if I told you there might be a way to handle this that benefits both of us?" I'd say I'm listening. Sebastian's been skimming money from client accounts. Nothing huge, just a few hundred here and there, but it adds up. I've been building a case to force him out of the partnership, but I needed more evidence. And now you have it. Now I have it. But here's the thing. If this blows up publicly, it takes me down too. Guilt by association, regulatory investigations, the whole mess. I need Sebastian gone, but I need it done quietly. I leaned back, processing the implications. What are you proposing? You keep doing whatever you're doing to make Sebastian's life miserable. Keep him distracted. Keep him making mistakes. Meanwhile, I document everything. Build an airtight case for his removal from the firm. When the time comes, he gets fired, loses his income, and probably faces criminal charges. Clean, quiet, and permanent. What about Elin? Derek smiled grimly. Without Sebastian's income, she won't be able to keep her business afloat, especially not with the kind of expenses you've documented. She'll collapse on her own. It was elegant in its simplicity. Let their own greed and paranoia destroy them while I maintained plausible deniability. And in return? In return, I make sure the regulatory investigation focuses solely on Sebastian's activities. Your name never comes up, and any evidence of the forged investment documents disappears into the bureaucratic shuffle. I extended my hand across the table. Deal. Derek shook it, his grip firm and confident. Deal. But Felix, whatever you're planning next, make it count. I need Sebastian completely off his game for the next 2 weeks while I finish gathering evidence. Consider it done. I left Murphy's with a new ally and a refined strategy. Sebastian thought he was being targeted by a vengeful ex-boyfriend. He had no idea he was actually being systematically destroyed by his own business partner. The next morning, I put the final phase of my plan into motion. It started with a simple phone call to Sebastian's office. Meridian Investment Group, this is Sebastian. I disguised my voice slightly, adding a hint of a southern accent. Mr. Lund, this is Detective Johnson with the Minneapolis Police Department. We've received some disturbing information about your involvement in a financial fraud investigation. The silence on the other end of the line was beautiful. I'm sorry, what? We have evidence suggesting you've been involved in forging investment documents and embezzling funds from a local business. We'd like you to come in for questioning this afternoon. This is insane. I haven't done anything wrong. Sir, I understand your concern, but we have documented evidence of financial transactions between your personal accounts and Rydell Communications, as well as forged documents bearing your signature. The sooner we can clear this up, the better. I need to call my lawyer. That's your right, sir. We'll be in touch to schedule a formal interview. I hung up, then immediately called Derek. It's done, I said when he answered. Sebastian should be thoroughly rattled by now. What did you do? Let's just say he thinks the police are investigating him for financial fraud. Should keep him distracted for the rest of the week. Derek chuckled. You're more devious than I gave you credit for. I like that in a partner. We're not partners, Derek. We just happen to have a common enemy. Fair enough. But Felix, when this is all over, if you ever want to get into the investment business legitimately, give me a call. You've got the instincts for it. I hung up, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and anticipation. The endgame was approaching, and all the pieces were falling into place exactly as I'd planned. 2 weeks later, everything came apart at once. It started with a phone call from Oscar at 6 a.m. Turn on Channel 7 News, he said without preamble. Your girlfriend's about to have a very bad day. I fumbled for the remote, clicking through channels until I found the local news. The anchor was discussing a developing story about a local PR firm under investigation for financial irregularities. Rydell Communications flashed across the screen, followed by a photo of Elin looking polished and confident from her company's website. Sources close to the investigation tell us that the firm's founder, Elin Rydell, is accused of misappropriating client funds and falsifying investor documents, the anchor continued. The allegations were brought forward by an anonymous whistleblower who provided detailed financial records to both the police and the state attorney general's office. I muted the television and called Derek. Please tell me you didn't leak this to the media. Wasn't me, Derek said, but I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. Though I may have mentioned the investigation to a few people in the financial community, word travels fast in this business. What about Sebastian? Sebastian is no longer employed by Meridian Investment Group as of yesterday afternoon. Turns out the stress of the past few weeks caused him to make some very expensive mistakes with client portfolios. When our compliance officer started digging deeper, she found evidence of the account skimming I mentioned. He was terminated immediately. I felt a surge of vindication mixed with something darker. How did he take it? About as well as you'd expect. Threatened to sue, claimed he was being framed, the usual denial routine. But when faced with actual evidence, he folded pretty quickly. Last I heard, he was trying to negotiate a settlement to avoid criminal charges. The news continued in the background, showing footage of Elin's office building as investigators carried out boxes of documents. Her carefully constructed world was crumbling in real time, a broadcast for the entire city to see. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "We need to talk. E." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Murphy's Bar, 8 p.m. Come alone." The response came immediately. "Fine." Maya looked up as I walked into the office that morning. "You look like someone who just won the lottery." Something like that. I settled into my chair, feeling lighter than I had in months. "How's the Peterson project coming along?" "Finished yesterday, actually, which is good, because I have a feeling we're about to get very busy. Word's already getting around about what happened to Rydell Communications. 3 potential clients called this morning asking about our services." "Apparently, there's nothing like a competitor's public downfall to drum up business." Maya grinned. "Karma's a wonderful thing, isn't it?" The day passed slowly, each hour bringing new developments in the unraveling of Elin and Sebastian's lives. By afternoon, the local business journal had picked up the story, detailing the scope of the financial irregularities and naming Sebastian as a co-conspirator. Social media was buzzing with gossip and speculation, fueled by Elin's former friends who were now eager to distance themselves from the scandal. Kira called around 3 o'clock, her voice breathless with excitement. "Felix, have you seen the news? About Elin?" "I saw it. I can't believe it. I mean, I knew she was cutting corners, but actual fraud? And Sebastian's been fired from his job. They're saying he might face criminal charges." "That's unfortunate." "Unfortunate?" Kira's voice rose. "Felix, this is incredible. After everything she put you through, everything she said about you being obsessive and controlling, she's the one who ends up in handcuffs." I didn't correct her assumption that I had nothing to do with the investigation. Sometimes the best revenge was letting people draw their own conclusions. "I hope she gets the help she needs," I said diplomatically. "You're a better person than I am. If someone had treated me the way she treated you, I'd be celebrating." After I hung up, I sat in my office watching the city through my window. In a few hours, I'd face Elin for the first time since that night she screamed at me for asking where she'd been, the night that started this whole chain of events. Murphy's Bar was nearly empty when I arrived at 8 o'clock. Elin was already there, sitting in the same booth Derek and I had used 2 weeks earlier. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of her collapsing world. "Hello, Elin." She looked up as I approached, and I was surprised to see tears in her eyes. "Felix, thank you for coming." I slid into the seat across from her, studying her face. The polished confidence was gone, replaced by something raw and desperate. "You wanted to talk?" "I know you did this." Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "I don't know how, but I know you're behind everything that's happening." That's quite an accusation. Is it an accusation if it's true? She leaned forward, searching my face. The timing's too perfect. Sebastian's car gets vandalized, then he starts making mistakes at work. Then suddenly there's an investigation into my business. You orchestrated all of it. I signaled the waitress for a beer, taking my time before responding. Let's say, hypothetically, that you're right. What would you want me to do about it? I want you to make it stop. Call off whoever you have feeding information to the investigators. Tell them it was all a misunderstanding. And why would I do that? Because despite everything that happened between us, I know you're not a cruel person. You're angry, and you have every right to be, but destroying my life won't bring back what we had. I took a long sip of my beer, considering her words. You're right about one thing. I'm not cruel. If I were cruel, I would have done this months ago when I first suspected you were cheating. I would have ruined you before you had a chance to build anything worth losing. Then why now? Because you used my name to commit fraud. Because you stole money from your own company to support your boyfriend's lifestyle. Because when I asked you where you'd been, you screamed at me like I was some kind of monster for caring about your safety. Lynn's composure finally cracked. I made mistakes, I know that. But please, Felix, I'm begging you. I'll lose everything. My business, my reputation, maybe even my freedom. You lost everything the night you decided I was the problem in your life instead of the solution. I stood up, leaving money on the table for my beer. You wanted space, Elin. Now you have all the space in the world. I walked away without looking back, leaving her alone in the booth with her tears and her regrets. Outside, the city lights stretched out before me like stars, beautiful and infinite. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Saw the news update. Sebastian's been arrested. How are you feeling? I typed back. Like someone who just remembered how to breathe. The next morning brought a final surprise. A knock on my office door revealed Derek Morrison, carrying a bottle of expensive whiskey and wearing the satisfied expression of a man who'd successfully eliminated a problem. Thought you might want to celebrate, he said, setting the bottle on my desk. Sebastian was arrested this morning on charges of embezzlement and securities fraud. Elin's been charged as an accessory. Both of them are looking at significant prison time. I stared at the bottle, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and something that might have been regret. It's over then. It's over, and Felix, I meant what I said about offering you a position. You've got a talent for this kind of strategic thinking. The legitimate kind, I mean. Thanks, but I think I'll stick with software development. It's less complicated. Derek laughed. Fair enough. But if you ever change your mind, you know where to find me. After he left, I sat alone in my office, thinking about the past few months. Elin had wanted space, and I'd given it to her. More space than she'd ever imagined, stretching out into a future where her choices had consequences and her actions had prices. Maya appeared in my doorway, studying my expression. You don't look like someone who just won. Maybe because winning isn't the same thing as being happy. Regrets? I thought about it for a moment, then shook my head. No regrets. Just closure, I guess. For the first time in months, I know exactly where I stand. And where's that? I looked out the window at the city below, at the place I'd built a new life and learned how to fight back when someone tried to take everything from me. Right where I'm supposed to be. The story ended not with reconciliation or forgiveness, but with the simple satisfaction of seeing justice served. Elin had screamed at me for wanting to know where she was. Now the whole world knew exactly where she was, and exactly what she'd done to get there. Sometimes space is exactly what people need, sometimes it's exactly what they deserve, and sometimes it's exactly what they get.